Welcome back to The Tangent, lovely humans. We are on episode 4, and today's episode is all about wheelchair debacles. We've been pretty serious on this podcast up to this point, and I've decided that this episode is the one where we're gonna start sharing some interesting and funny things that have happened to me as a wheelchair using human. I think life in a wheelchair is definitely extra logistical. You can imagine that, right? And I guess it can be risky, and sometimes disability increases that risk, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't go and experience all the things. It just means we have some more planning, and when things go wrong, it's a bit more dramatic, but we should still have life experiences. So I guess this episode is gonna be a compilation of wheelchair fail moments that we can laugh about now. So let's get into it. Buckle up, lovelies. We're taking a ride through some of the quirkiest corners of my life on wheels. I'm Katie, and I've been doing this disabled thing since day one. This is not your typical disability education podcast. Every tangent, every detour is a chance to look behind that curtain of disabled life, unravel the threads of confusion, and discover those, whoa, that actually makes sense moments. Eventually, this is the tangent, where laughter is the map, curiosity is the compass, and understanding blooms even in the craziest corners. Hit subscribe, grab your headphones, and get ready to be surprised, because the way to understand why is to embrace the wild, hilarious how. So let's do the thing. Okay, so some important context that I probably shared before, but we can reiterate. I have been a wheelchair using human since I can remember. So my entire life is as a disabled person, and as such, I have developed some incredible logistical skills. You can laugh a little bit more with these stories because I like to plan, and I like things going to plan, but granted, life is not like that, and we have to go with it sometimes. So remember, this is 26-ish years of story compiled into one podcast episode. Also important to remember here that sometimes, for some reason, people find it hard to believe that just because I'm in a wheelchair and disabled, people believe that I'm not capable of being clumsy. This is erroneous. My friends, I have added potential for clumsiness. Okay, my body rebels on the regular, so you can imagine the things that happen. You would think that it's not possible to trip in a wheelchair. Let me correct you. It is entirely possible and highly entertaining to witness. So we're going in with that understanding that I'm a clumsy human being and things happen and it's often hilarious, and now we're just sharing those stories and claiming them as part of the entertaining history. So I got my wheelchair when I was 3 years old. So my earliest dramatic funny story about my chair, I have fallen out of my wheelchair many a time. And so the earliest memory that we have about me and my chair is at my 4th birthday party. So I had my chair for a while. It was way too big for me because I was a tiny human being, and I had like polystyrene on the footrest and I was strapped into that thing properly. We couldn't get like Katie-sized wheelchairs at that point. They weren't available in South Africa, and so we got the smallest possible chair, which was still ginormous. But we made a plan, and so me being 4 years old now, I have fellow 4-year-olds that I was playing with who were my friends, who are my friends still, and when you're 4 years old, you're gonna fall on your face sometimes, and wheelchair users are not excluded from these experiences, or at least that's been my experience, that like I was allowed to fall because you learn through falling, you learn lessons, and those are important life lessons that you shouldn't be excluded from just because you use a device to get around. So here's what happened. I was in my wheelchair at my 4th birthday, and my friends were pushing me around. We had a rose garden at the house that we lived in, and it was sort of in the middle of the garden, which made it for really good games. And my friends were pushing me around, and it got a little bit tense, I guess, because there was an argument that ensued about who was gonna push me and in the game, and us being 4 years old, like things got out of hand a little bit, and my friends were 2 people were pushing me. I ended up in the rose garden. Luckily, my dad had recently pruned them. Is that what you say with roses? Like the thorns were not present anymore. So I fell into the roses, and the problem with this is that I am securely tied in to the wheelchair, so I didn't fall out of the chair. I fell over with the chair, and the chair landed on top of me. I wasn't there for a long time, you guys. Like, people panicked and lifted me off of the roses. But we make the joke that I was like a little tortoise with a wheelchair show for a hot second. So I started crying because, hello, I fell into roses and like looked ridiculous probably doing that as well. And so I was crying. My best friend Justine was crying also, I think from shock and also maybe some panic about having pushed me into the roses. But it's alright, things happen, and we cried together and got over it together, and I wasn't harmed or anything. It was just like a shocking experience, and yeah, so no Katies were harmed in the making of that memory. I was perfectly fine. I had like tiny little scratches on me, and we learned then that it's not maybe advisable to have 2 4-year-olds vying for pole position when pushing a fellow 4-year-old. We learned that we need to maybe have some better guidelines and rules around pushing Katie. So all of this is happening before I got my motorized chair. I think the stories got a little bit more entertaining as I got older, because it's kind of more on me that these things have happened, because when it's me in my motorized chair, I'm in control of that situation. So hence the clumsiness rears its head at these points in my existence. But there's always like multiple people involved in the situation, or at least witnesses. So that was fun. 4-year-old Katie in the verses. I also remember vividly having an experience where I was at school, and in grade 4 I was 9 years old, so I was still doing like riding the tricycle and stuff like that as a part of therapy. Stopped doing that shortly after this situation occurred, but I was riding my bike at school, and again I'm tied into the bike, guys, with my feet, not like around my waist, but my feet are secured into the bike. So I was riding my bike and somebody kicked a ball or something, and it went into my front wheel and it destabilized me, and the whole bicycle fell over. And me being attached to the bike, I fell over with it, which is fine unless nobody notices, right? But luckily I had some friends around who low-key panicked about it and called our teacher, and like everybody was stressing. I don't think I was crying at that point, but we got me back and we undid my feet and put me back on the bike, or found my wheelchair, and that was the end of riding for that day. We learned that day that I don't have awareness of soccer balls, and now I sort of have a little bit of a fear of them. I think I have a bit of a fear of them now. Maybe it's rooted in this experience. Maybe it's also rooted in the experience of playing soccer with my cousins in Sedgefield during the school holidays, and us deciding that it was the best option for my inclusion in the game to be goalkeeper. And I had soccer balls thrown at my head and stuff, so I think that maybe that has a bit to do with it as well. Please be aware that I was fully on board with all of these plans. The soccer, me being goalkeeper thing was very logistically smart. Like, we were being strategic about it, because we figured that me being a wheelchair user took up more room in the goal and harder to have the other team score. Also, using like mind games with people thinking that they don't really want to kick a ball at the kid in the wheelchair. So that worked for maybe one school holiday, and then the other kids around caught on, and then I wasn't so fragile. So that was fun. That worked for a little bit, but we eventually had to change tactics, and I had to actually play some soccer. But it was a good time. I think all of these experiences we learned stuff from, and they add to the chaos that is life. So some of the stories I feel really like ridiculous about. These are some chronological stories, so they're not happening in quick succession, but they did happen chronologically. They got more ridiculous as I got older. So one that I feel really dumb about is when I was 11 years old, I was going with my mom and dad to a prize giving for my sister, and we were at school, and I was going the way I always go, and there was no issue. I went ahead as was standard because like I was faster than other people. So I was like, this is fine. I know where I'm going. I'm just gonna go. I turned the corner as I did it almost every day, and I did not realize that there was an empty flower bed right on the corner, because it usually had flowers in it. So peripherally, I thought that I had more space than I had. So I got myself falling into an empty flower bed, which is a bit embarrassing, if we're being honest. If somebody did that and they were on legs, you would not feel as bad as you do thinking about me falling out of my wheelchair. I didn't fall out of the wheelchair. I fell sideways and my chair sort of landed on my elbow, so I sprained my elbow a little bit. But who doesn't sprain an elbow every now and then? So that one hurt a little bit, but we survived. And then we paid a little bit more attention to what our surroundings, and we stopped thinking that there were flowers in flower beds where they used to be. We had to pay a little bit more attention, be a little bit more aware. So that happened. I felt so ridiculous in that situation, but luckily it was only my parents around, and then when we got into the hall and I was scratched up and stuff, my sister afterwards was like, what are you guys doing? So that was fun. And I think that this next experience happened pretty close to the prize giving incident, but I was in grade 6, and this is where I fully believe that wheelchairs and assistive devices have their own personalities, and they deserve respect for this exact reason. Not only the fact that they are empowering to people, but because they have personalities and that they can screw you over whenever they feel like it. So this next story is an example of that. Like, respect the chairs, people. I was in grade 6, and so what's that? Like 11, 12 years old, and I was getting ready to have surgery, and I had an appointment with my orthopedic surgeon, and then we were running late. So my mom phoned my facilitator at the time and told her to get me in my chair, get me ready, and like run to the gate because we gotta go. And we did that literally because it wasn't a big deal. And so she put me in my chair. We didn't have time, so she didn't tie my seatbelt, and like we ran to the gate. In this whole process, we did not one time think about safety, because we'd done this a million times before and it was fine. So we get outside, we were running to the gate, and my seatbelt, this is like such an ironic part of the story, and this is where I think the personality of the chair was like, hello, time for a life lesson. So my seatbelt was over the side of my armrests. So when we were running, they were kind of flapping around, and the one side got caught in the wheel, and the wheelchair stopped, but I didn't. So I flew out the chair. Like, I didn't have like a Superman moment, because that you don't get that kind of height, but I flew out the chair, and because I have my disability, I didn't at that point have reflexes to like put my hands out to save myself. So I landed on my face. I landed on my chin and then my teeth, and we have those like bricks that are a little rough. So I landed on my chin and my teeth, and my facilitator starts freaking out because now I'm bleeding. And from my perspective, I thought that I no longer had front teeth. I thought that that was the end for me. I didn't have them anymore. They were not in my mouth, and because I saw the blood, and that was my assumption. I'm thinking I'm now toothless. Alberti's freaking out because now I fell out of my wheelchair and I'm bleeding, and she's supposed to keep me safe and all of these other things. She picks me up and starts running around in circles, literal circles, not knowing what to do. And my sister phones my mom, and she's like, Katie's bleeding, and they're running around in circles. And my mom was right there. Within 2 minutes, she was in the driveway and gets out of the car, says what's happening, assesses the situation, and figures that we're going to the hospital anyway, so we'll just keep going. I'm still bleeding at this point. I've sort of realized that I still have teeth, so I was less concerned about the situation. In the car, I'm sitting on Oasis' lap, and she's freaking out, still gone pale, but my mom's like, don't worry about it, we're gonna sort everything out. We get to the hospital, and we go to my ortho appointment, and we're sitting in the waiting room. I've stopped bleeding at this point, but I was still crying and making it a bit of a scene about it. And there was a really grumpy old man sitting opposite us, and he was just like, ugh, children. I'm sorry, dude. I just nearly broke my face, but no worries. Apologies for invading your peace. So yeah, we go in for the consult, and my surgeon is like, I'm not an ER doctor, but okay, cool. And he put those little patches over my chin, and he checked my teeth, and he was like, well, they're still in there. They're loose, but they're there. And he, once that was sorted out, he continued to check out my knees and stuff, and that was 2 for 1, I guess. I do remember though, after that happening, I couldn't eat solid foods because my teeth were loose, and so I ate jelly and custard for 2 weeks, which I was perfectly happy about, perfectly content, Katie, eating jelly and custard. I do remember though feeling super self-conscious a couple of days later because I was in the choir and we had a performance, and I had this huge bandage over my chin, and I still went to the performance because you gotta show up when you commit to something. I go to this performance and I do the choir thing. And the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, what are these people thinking happened to my face? Because I think there's so much assumption around disabled people not, you have to protect us, and we have to be safe, and we have to not fall and get injured, and all of this kind of idea. So me showing up with bandages on my chin flies in the face of all of that assumption. I guess people were learning some lessons from me just existing after injuring myself, but I was super self-conscious in that moment. But we moved forward, and I healed, and it's fine, and now I have a good story. I'm super good friends with Ometu. She still works with us. She's wonderful. So nothing negative happened after that. Because you know what? Shit happens sometimes. You gotta just take the lessons from that. But leading on from this story, I realized that I'm clumsy and don't pay attention to where I'm going often. And I was on campus in my first year of university, and there was a big fountain, and I was looking at my friend who was like beyond the fountain. So I wasn't paying attention to where the fountain was. Clearly, I have an issue with peripheral vision, guys. This is not a cerebral palsy issue. This is a fully Katie issue, not paying attention to where I'm at. So I'm looking at my friend. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm gonna get to him. And somebody almost walked into me, so I avoided them. But I ended up getting into the fountain. And there wasn't a lot of water in it, so I had no chance of like shorting out my chair or anything. But I did get stuck a little bit in the fountain. This is how you know you have good friends, because before he came to help me, he had to laugh and he had to be like, "This is amazing. You just fell in the fountain. I didn't think I would ever see this happen in my whole life." I'm very glad that I gave some entertainment value that day. But he did eventually come and get me out of the fountain. You know, I'm allowed to be clumsy and make errors of judgment and spatial judgment. Maybe I have some Labrador energy in there somewhere. It's fine. Remembering that I, as like a 12-year-old, don't have reflexes to protect myself from injury. I also in 2018-ish started doing CrossFit and getting into fitness and like reworking or like creating some neural pathways to protect myself from injury. It's not super simple to create new pathways, but I did that at some point and have learned to put my hands up a little bit when I fall, and then potentially protecting my face. We get a little bit full circle at this point, because in 2019 I went with a whole delegation with the Katie campaign. We went to Mexico for the Nobel Peace Laureates World Summit, and it was in Mexico in 2019, and it took us forever to get to Mexico, because we live in South Africa. It takes forever to get anywhere. We're on this mission. We've been traveling for like a million hours. We finally get to Merida in Mexico. This is our 4th flight or something, and my wheelchair is on the tarmac, which I'm super excited about. I see my wheelchair, I'm excited. It's a small plane, so they have to carry me down the stairs, and the one assistant guy didn't understand that I don't have balance. So we got to the chair, and there was a cross chest strap situation that clipped at the back of the chair, and he didn't know that I can't balance and that I don't have the ability to sit up by myself with stability. And so when he got me to sitting next to my chair, I had my hand on the wheelchair armrest, and he just unclipped the straps. I was not aware that he was doing that, and I was leaning on them for safety, which was clearly a mistake. And he unclipped it, so I entered Mexico, and I fell on my face, and I fell onto the tarmac. We almost got a video of that happening, because I got my friend who was in the delegation to be like, "Yay, we made it to Mexico." And he ended the video just as I was falling, and I was like, "Why did you do that? That would have been such a good video. It would have been hilarious to see." And I have gained a little bit of ability to at least protect my face. So I turned, I don't know how I did this, but I turned, and so I landed more on my arm than on my face, which is a bonus. And I was hysterical, not in tears, but I was hysterically laughing. And my mom got to me and freaked out, and she was like, "What's happening?" And gets mad at me because I'm laughing and not recognizing the seriousness of the situation. This is also a trend, I think, in my existence, because I tend to get hysterical with laughter in pretty serious situations. So that happened. Everybody else freaked out, and I was just like, thanks CrossFit, I didn't break my face this time. I think that the assistant guy got sufficiently yelled at by his superiors. Granted, because you gotta pay attention to what people need, but I was highly entertained by that situation. I did get some, I don't know, like tar burn, I guess, on my hands and stuff, but it added to the story, so we're okay with it. And then I think the last sort of dramatic disability wheelchair related fail that I have so far is I went to Rwanda with my mom, and there on our way back, nothing dramatic happened with the flight. It was standard practice. We have to wait to the end and waiting for the assistant people, the PAU, to get to me. And so everybody else had left. I was sitting in my seat. We are learning slowly but surely, but not enough to actually remember to keep doing these things. That seatbelts are actually pretty important in my life. Even if it's just psychologically, I need them. Physically, often I am fine, but psychologically, I need them to be on and present so that I can feel like I'm not gonna fall on my face. But this time, on the flight back from Rwanda, I was sitting in my seat and we'd undone my seatbelt because we were like, what's gonna happen? Guys, I was sitting fine normally, and my leg spasmed, and when my leg spasmed, I kind of fell forward and tried to catch myself on the seat next to me. I put my hand down on the seat next to me and tried to catch myself, but I missed the seat, so I ended up falling, not on my face, but it was kind of slow motion because it was a small space. But my mom freaked out about it because she just saw me disappearing. Here's me now stuck under an airplane seat on the floor. And I'm just at that point a bit hysterical because I feel like I look ridiculous. And the flight attendant was freaking out because that's not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to have disabled people falling out of their seats and getting stuck under them. That was hysterical to me. I was trying to understand the position of my body, and I couldn't communicate at that point, partially because I was laughing, but also because I was processing what had happened and trying to organize my body in a way that it would be easier to get me out. And so I'm processing. I'm trying to organize my body, but at this point, people arrived in a panic and they wanted to assist me, which makes a lot of sense, right? Like, I felt I need somebody to pick me up, but I'm stuck. So I'm laughing, and my mom gets upset with me because when I'm laughing, I'm very much less helpful to whatever plan is going on to get me out of the plane. So I had to gather myself. I did not succeed so much because when I tried to gather myself, the PAU woman that we'd known for, I don't know, like 10 years or something, she arrived on the plane and she was like, what are you doing on the floor? It just escalated my hysteria. That was really funny to me, and I think that often we are encouraged to not have experiences because they might be risky, and I don't think that that is a good approach to life for me. Like, everybody has these stories where you are being an idiot and like falling off of things and walking into poles and not paying attention to what you're doing and making some hilarious mistake. Like, that happens to everybody. So I also want to have those experiences. I do have them. I hope that they're entertaining and people can appreciate them for what they are and don't don't take it too seriously. This is not the episode where we're like, take this seriously. This is just funny shit that happened while I was like not concentrating on keeping my disability in check. And that's important, that we have to share these experiences, because I think that there's so many people that are scared to do it because of what might happen. But look at what does happen. You have all of these great moments and these great life stories that you can't have unless you take a little bit of risk, and you can't learn the lessons that you have to learn if you don't put yourself into these situations where you may maybe get a little bit hurt. And that's alright. And I think the way that I approach these situations and these challenges and these fail moments, I think makes my life better. It makes me more accepting of the ridiculousness that is life. And I think we need to all take that approach a little bit more than we do in general. Sometimes it's just funny, and that's allowed. I'm going to continue sharing the hilariousness that my disability brings to my life. So we'll see you in the next one.